Well, I'd like to lift up two women who've been very dear mentors to me. The first is Bishop Leontine Kelly, who is in heaven with God in life eternal. And Leontine was the first African-American woman to be considered as a bishop in our southeastern jurisdiction. And she was not elected here, but I had the joy of working on her campaign committee and watched a miracle happen when she was called to the western jurisdiction and elected a bishop and served there with great distinction. And it was wonderful to see God at work in some very different ways across our church when her part of the church had rejected her and her calling. But a way was found and she was able to serve and had a wonderful, wonderful ministry. The other mentor for me is Bishop Sharon Rader. When I went to seminary in 1970, Sharon was a student at a neighboring campus and our two campuses merged. So Sharon and I came to know each other early on, and I saw in her and found in her a wonderful role model for a woman who had been a successful teacher, a woman who happened to be married, a woman who happened to be a mother, and a woman who was an incredible preacher. And so when I saw her and listened to her and was around her and gloried in her leadership, it really gave me courage to continue the steps I needed to say, yes, this is my calling as well. So thanks be to God for Leontine Kelly and Sharon Rader.
An important mentor in my life was a missionary named Julia Williams. When I was a young youth director, she welcomed me into the ministry of a local church where she was serving as Christian educator. She was one of the most creative people that I've ever known. And she welcomed me also into the mission life of our annual conference, and we had many mission experiences together. She was a masterful storyteller, and she would invite me to go with her when she would do mission interpretation in congregations. And one night, after going a number of times with Julia, on the way to the church, she turned to me and said, "You're talking tonight." And so she invited me in after mentoring me by example. I give thanks for her blessed memory. She went to God just this year, a few months ago, and I give thanks to God for her life. I also give thanks to God for the mentoring friendship of Bishop Kammerer, who was the first woman elected in the southeastern jurisdiction. And as I came into this role, Charlene was constantly extending herself, offering support, prayers, checking on me to see how I was doing. And I give thanks to God for that sort of love and surrounding care.
There are really three categories of mentors that I'll mention. First, there are the indirect mentors. I think of Laura Wells, who I did not realize was mentoring me until many years after she'd influenced me. She was a church and community worker who served for a season in the area where I lived as a child and teenager. And she was the first full-time female church professional whom I saw in action. And then there's a second category of mentors. I would call them mentors on whose shoulders I stand. A prime example of that for me is my mother, Adela Wallace. My mom grew up in a time and a place where the roles of women were very defined. And though she cracked some ceilings, she didn't break many. However, she supported and encouraged and continues to encourage me. And in many ways, I stand on her shoulders and a whole host of other women, some lay and some clergy. And then the final category I describe is clergy women who are peer mentors. There are a handful of women who have been an important part of my growth and development as a clergy woman. And sometimes we would find ourselves in situations where we'd not been before, and we navigated them together. And together we were able to figure out some things and some ways forward that I'm confident I would not have been able to determine myself alone.
When I think about mentors, I entered ministry in a time when there were no women that I had seen in ministry, so I really didn't have mentors at that point. But once I responded to that call in my life and entered ministry, then God continued to put people who would walk along beside me and encourage me and give me strength. I think about Bob Fannin, who was the district superintendent at the time in the Florida Conference and then later became a bishop and has been a dear friend of mine, and how he was very supportive of me. I think about Judy Craig. I knew her before she was elected a bishop, and how she just was a powerful influence in ministry for me. And then there have been United Methodist Women, lay persons through the years, and ministers in the Holston Conference who have supported me and been mentors. So in this journey, I think that God continues to help us do what God calls us to do and gives us resources and strength in people and how people love us and care for us that is very helpful to us as mentors.